I'm really going to be real old-fashioned and traditional with this and put it right on my mom, my grandma, my aunts. I was always a really good girl, neat, sweet, and in my seat, as they say. And but part of the reason that I was that way is that I had a close family in St. Louis, and I knew that if I strayed from the path, that I was going to disappoint all of those people. And they were all really solid, hardworking, great, loving people. So yeah. So then.
Hey everyone, it's Tony Will. I am back with another fabulous episode of Women In, and I cannot wait for you to meet my next guest. But before you meet her, let me tell you what you're listening to. Women In is a podcast that celebrates women from all walks of life and the people who uplift them. Each episode features incredible voices from my world, sharing stories that spark inspiration, challenge the status quo, and remind us that empowering women empowers everyone. This is a bold, curious, and uncensored space where disruption is welcome, forward thinking is encouraged, and change is the goal. I'm passionate about breaking down barriers, not just for us, but for the next generations. Whether our paths cross professionally or personally, these conversations matter. Let's dive in and celebrate the power of connection, growth, and the people who are shaping our world, and this woman is certainly one of them. Lorie Kleiner Eckert. She has spent 30 years in the motivation field. She's published 5 books. She has spoken to 250 audiences in 11 states and has written a nationally syndicated and award-winning column and is a quilt artist making quilts with words and symbols pieced into design. In every case, as a speaker, author, columnist, and artist, she tells stories of her life and hopes others can glean life lessons from them. Additionally, she thinks of herself as a cheerleader with the message that life is difficult, but that you can handle it. Her newest book is part of what we're going to talk about today. It's called Chai on Life. The book has 36 slices of life stories with topics ranging from belly fat to Billy Joel. Each story has a full color illustration that includes a one-line takeaway from the chapter. Wow, I love this, Lorie. Welcome.
Thanks so much, Tony. Thanks for having a wonderful show that I can be on. I appreciate that.
No, my pleasure. So tell everyone how you and I got connected. And I love to open the podcast this way so people know how powerful the word yes can be. So how did you and I become connected?
Well, there is this amazing website called podmatch.com. So anybody who's been on a dating website, it's very similar. And so my publisher, Bancroft Press, put me in as someone looking to be a guest on podcasts. And then I don't remember if I approached you or you approached me, because it works both ways. And then we can look at each other's stuff. I could listen to a couple of your podcasts and see if it sounds like it's right up my alley or not. And then we can either pass on each other. We can say maybe later, or we can contact each other. So we contacted each other, and here we are.
Here we are. I love it.
Yeah, it didn't happen.
So let me ask you a question. I don't get to ask this question much because some of my guests have publicists and go to experts to help them get their books out or their thought work out or what they're working on. So talk about what that decision-making process was for you to hire someone to help you get you more places to talk about the things you're working on.
Well, so I do have 5 books in print. The first 3 were traditionally published by Pelican Publishing Company, and then they went a slightly different direction and eventually sold to another company. And then my 4th book was self-published, which is a whole different beast. And then I'm back to traditional publishing again. So for me, that's the crux of it, is self-publishing versus traditional publishing. And so then, since I am traditionally published now, my publisher, Bruce Boards at Bancroft Press, he calls a lot of the shots. So he's the one who paid, I think it's maybe $32 a month for me to be on Podmatch. It's nothing huge, but he pays that, and he actually had a publicist who worked as the middleman, but it doesn't work to have a middleman when we're talking your calendar and my calendar and trying to put it together. A third party doesn't work, so I took over my account there. But really, for anyone trying to get published, and I know that you have a book coming out momentarily, or pre-sales are happening. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
It really does fall a lot to the author to do the lion's share, or at least today it does. Back in the days with Pelican Publishing Company, they really didn't want me to do anything. They wanted to be in charge of it, which in some ways was nice. But now it does fall on the author's shoulders. And anybody who's on social media knows that whether you post on Facebook that you won the Pulitzer Prize or the Nobel Peace Prize, or if you post what you ate for breakfast this morning, it's going to play for about 24 hours and then it's over. So for an author to try and get the word out about their work, it's really tough stuff. So again, I'm thrilled for the opportunity to be on podcasts and to have your audience as well as mine, and then my audience becomes yours too when I advertise our show. So it's a win-win.
It is. And it's interesting, when I started podcasting 2 years ago, I literally, to the day almost, I had no intent of building what's called, for those of you who are not authors, but maybe are aspiring to be, I had no desire to build an author's platform. That's not why I launched a podcast. Because if I was going to do that, I would have actually launched a podcast named after my book. But I would have. I mean, I'm giving away all my secrets here, but it's a great name. Rebellious Success, the book. Rebellious Success, the podcast. Chai on Life, the book. Chai on Life, the podcast. It's interchangeable. But that's not why I did it. I did it because I wanted to tell these stories about women or men who I interviewed too, the important women in their life. So then it was, as I'm talking to more authors like you, my friends that are authors, they're like, "Oh, you're building this great authors platform." I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "No, I'm just telling stories." And then the light started to go off. And I'm not a dense, but I was just like, oh, because my intentions were in another place. But to your point, Lorie, I want to come back because you got 5 books, and it's this landscape of publishing has changed. And you've kind of dabbled in both. You said self-publishing, traditional publishing, and then there's hybrid that's in the middle. So what would you say, because more books are published now, because people have the ability to self-publish. So what are you seeing now over the years of being an author it's just not right now? And let me ask this, when did your first book get published?
I think it was in 95 or 96. My first 3 books were in the late 90s and maybe 2001. And
Yes.
then my 4th book that was self-published was about 5 years ago. You would think I would know, but I don't.
Well, no.
And then this one came out in September.
Well, my point is that's 30 years ago. And the only reason I know it's 30 years ago is because I graduated high school in 1996, and this summer will be 30 years. So how much in the 30 years has changed as being an author 30 years ago versus an author in 2026?
Well, it's hugely different because what? Everything you wrote back then, you had to send it out, a hard copy via the mail with a self-addressed stamped envelope so they could return it with the pink slip saying they don't accept it. And this is whether you wrote one story that you're hoping to get in a regional magazine or newspaper, or if you wrote an entire book. And it was a daunting task. It was very overwhelming to get so many rejection notices. My first book was 22 rejection notices before Pelican Publishing took me on, which is not a lot as these things go. But now anybody can write anything. I mean, I'm on medium.com. There is no police there. You can post anything. It can be 100% full of lies. It can be 100% AI written, I think. I don't know, maybe not AI. But nobody's checking it. And you can put everything up there. But then we go back to this platform. Who's going to find it? Someone's got to find it, So So it was better back in the 90s because there were fewer publishers, there were fewer books. There are like 1 million self-published books published a year. And to most readers, they don't know hybrid, they don't know traditional publishing, they don't know self-publishing. It's a book, and yeah, but I think it used to be different when it was a smaller market before Amazon. Maybe.
Well, and I think too back then, and correct me if I'm wrong, but because you've written in multiple places, and I want to ask you about your column here in a minute, but authors back before this era of self-publishing, they could make a living off writing books.
Yeah, well, I actually don't know. So back my first 3 books, my royalty was 85 cents a book. So you're not going to get rich on this. However, it was working as a motivational speaker, so I sold the book in the back of the room after my lectures. And so that's where I made the money. At the time, I think I got 40% off the book, and so I charged retail. And sometimes I spoke for free. If you bought a copy of the book for everyone in the room, I still play that game. And so, it was just really so different. It really was so different.
Well, and some things, like you said, have not changed, which is playing the game of buy the book and, I'll speak for free. So, yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's talk about I want to hear about the column. What was the column you wrote about? What type of column is this?
Well, so I was this motivational speaker, illustrating my talk with quilts that had words and symbols pieced into the design. And so those are my first 2 books. They're adult picture books, short on words, long on pictures. So it's picture of 12 quilts. So after the first book had like a series of vows you would make to yourself as you're starting a new portion of your life. For me, it was divorce. So it was just a poem that went with these pictures. The second book was based on the idea, a picture in 1,000 words. So there was a 1,000-word essay that went with each picture. And so it was after getting my second book published that I realized I liked to write. But again, there was this terrible, horrible problem of who's going to print it. And so this was the late 1990s. The internet was pretty new, and I was able to go in. I wrote a Jewish slice of life column aimed at people who were single in midlife. And I was able to go on the internet and type in the American Jewish Press Association and get the name of every newspaper, every publisher, every editor, their email, their snail mail, their phone number. It was just all there, I didn't have to join. I just clicked into it. And so I started cold calling. I started selling it, and no 2 papers were the same. Some published weekly, some published monthly, some had a budget. One lady used to send me a personal check for $25 whenever she published me. And I'd say, this is the honor system. If you publish me, send me whatever you pay for one-time rights. So it was a slice of life column aimed at those who were single in midlife. I've always been the cheerleader. My message was, I know you don't want to be single, but I know you can handle it. And so I was a rah-rah cheerleader. And I did write a little bit about dating, but it was always optimistic. And I gave you, the good points and so forth. But I also wrote things like, okay, so you always wanted to have a big garden, but you're in an apartment, so let's do container gardening. I know it's hard to cook for one, so I interviewed a chef at a restaurant, and he gave me some tips what to have in your pantry at all times. So I wrote to that audience, and what I heard, which is what's kept me going all these years, is that I heard from men and women alike that they liked my voice, basically. They weren't using that word. But when they read my stories, they felt like I was sitting in their family room talking just to them. So I've always been very chatty in the way that I write. And I had this one lady write me, and she said, "Might surprise you to hear that I am not single in midlife." that I'm, 75 years old and been married for 40 years, but I still think you're sitting right here in my living room talking to me. So that's really spurred me on through all of my creative endeavors, is that I do get that response from people. I love that. That's great. That's really great. But so that's what it was. So it was, and I wrote that column for 3 years until I got sick of viewing my life through the lens of a single person. I was so much more than that, I was just so much more than that. So, but then my third book, which has a name that people love, they buy the book because they like the title. The title is I Need a Man's Pants to Wash. And
I did not know that's the third title. Okay, wait, let's talk about this. How did you come up with the title, and what is the book about?
Well, so the title is a compilation of the first year of columns, so 52 columns. And I have to tell you, Tony, that every column was 750 words, not 749, not 751, because these editors had to know how I was going to fit into their newspaper. So yeah, it was just really a compilation of stories. And the way it got its title is that my grandma was widowed, and I said to her, "Don't you want to get married again, Grandma?" And she said, "I need a man's pants to wash," with such disdain, and with a question mark and an exclamation point at the end. And I thought, well, here I was, 42 and divorced. Did I want to do this again or not? So I Need a Man's Pants to Wash didn't have punctuation as I explored being single in midlife. So that's how that came from. But one of my great joys was an author who wrote a blurb for my new book. Just read the titles of these stories and you'll get a chuckle. So like one of the stories is called My Stomach is Flat, but the L is silent. Okay. And it's about belly fat, So I've always done that, but it works against me in modern times. If you are writing for the internet, your title is supposed to be, your keywords, and your keyword is supposed to be repeated 3 or 4 or 5 times, and I mean, it's ridiculous, and it's not really the way that I write. I like these screwball titles and often use them.
Well, and they have, what I love about it, I mean, everyone can hear me cackling over here, there's a sense of humor to it. And I value, I mean, it's one of my core values, a sense of humor, because, I mean, life can be hard, so why not have fun while we're doing it?
Definitely. Yep. Well, if I find a line that I like, my stomach is flat, but the L is silent. I saw that on the internet. I grabbed that. So if I see something like that, I grab it. So one that I haven't written the story yet, but this is a great title, is I don't snore. I just dream I'm a motorcycle.
Another great one.
Most likely that's going to be about the trouble of traveling with my daughter as my roommate because she couldn't sleep with me because I snored. So what's plan B? That's probably where I'm going with that, but I haven't written it yet.
Yeah. So I want to ask, let's talk, you're single in midlife at 42. And so tell me the rest of the story in terms of your personal life. And you didn't want to look through that lens anymore as you wrote that column for 3 years. So tell me about the rest of that story. And once you stopped looking through that lens, and what lens did you start looking through next?
Grandma, the lens of grandma. Yeah, I actually then had 2 long-term relationships, each for 8 to 10 years. One, we broke up. The second one, my significant other passed away, which was really then the topic of the 4th book, Love, Loss, and Moving On. But so I was in relationship, and so one of the questions I think you often ask is work-life balance. I haven't figured that out. So I think
Me
while
neither.
I was in relationships, it all happened at the same time that I also started to have grandkids, and I have 10 of them came over 11-year period. So I was a grandma for a good long time. And then Big Irv was the name of the man that passed away. Big Irv, we called him. And so then Big Irv passed away. And it had been a very difficult passage for lots of reasons. Well, one that you'll just love is how we've been dating, but the way we started to live together is that he surprised me on his birthday and moved into my house. He surprised me.
I love this Big Irv.
Oh, bigger, so this is all makes for what not High on Life, what Love, Loss, and Moving On is all about. And I also have to tell you, when you go through a terrible time in your life, like the loss of a significant other, you often do really weird things and you have to forgive yourself for them. So often that's promiscuity, drugs, alcohol, whatever. For me, I got a crush on the British actor Bill Nye. He's the guy who was in Love Actually, the aging rock star in Love Actually. Yeah. And I got a crush on him because I wrote him a fan letter and he wrote back and he sprinkled it with 3 X's, which is the international sign of a kiss. So I was sure that he had experienced love at first right with me writing him a letter. And so I badgered that man for probably a year until, he was my crutch. I watched his movies, I wrote him letters, and that was my crutch getting through the loss of working through all that with Big Irv. Is that crazy? But that's how it all goes. So, yeah, so then, so how do these things happen also? So after I wrote Love, Loss, and Moving On, do you know Jane Friedman? Do you know that name? She's she's the guru for getting published. She just does a lot. Anyway,
Yeah.
I hired her as a consultant, and she said that I needed a website to promote that book. I needed an author's website, and here we go back to the author's platform and all that kind of stuff. And so I created a website. Okay, great. And then the web designer said to me, oh, well, now you have to start writing a blog so people will come to your website. It's like, what? I thought it was done writing. And so I started writing a blog a month. And at this point, I'm writing number 180. I'm literally right now writing blog number 180, so I can't do the math at 2 a month, 24 a year. That's a lot of time that I've been writing this. Anyway, but the new book is a compilation of some of the stories from that book, because they're all slice of life. They're all I'm telling the stories of my life, hoping you can glean life lessons from them, just what I've always done in my professional work. And then I wrote about a dozen. There's about a dozen new stories, about 2 dozen stories that had been published elsewhere, and all compiled into one book. And I have to tell you that there are many ways to say the title of the book. So it is spelled CHAI, like chai tea. And I love that because a podcaster had said to me, if your book was a food, what would it be? And I said, well, it would be a comfort food like chai tea. But it's also CHAI is a mystical word in Hebrew, and it means life. So if you've heard the toast, l'chaim, to life, that it's the same root word. So I'm drinking a toast to life, basically, in this book. And that's, so High on Life, but I love to call it Shy on Life because then people can find it on Amazon. That works.
It does. Now, you said that this was published, you're back with a traditional publisher for this one?
Yeah.
And so it is, what was the published date? When did it come out?
It came out September 15th. Okay. So it's just had a 6-month anniversary. And I don't know how it's doing. I haven't gotten a royalty statement yet. I follow it all the time on Amazon.
And to see where it's at.
Yeah, for your sake and for mine, to all of your listeners, when you buy my book or Tony's, you have to go back in and give it a rating. You have to go give it 5 stars. Please, please, I beg you.
Yeah.
That seems to make a difference on Amazon somehow.
It does. Thank you, Lorie, for bringing that up because, and that's one of the things I had someone that I sent an advance copy to, and they're like, I want to go rate it on Amazon, but I can't. I go, you have to wait until after it's published because mine doesn't come out till August 11th. And so, but thank you for bringing that up because yes, rate our books, even if you say love it, exclamation point. It doesn't need to be, you don't have to be an author to leave us a review.
Right. Yeah, love this book. Gave it to my sister. It's whatever. One line, that's it.
Well,
Yeah.
speaking of sisters,
Yeah.
speaking of sisters or women, I'd like to talk about the women in your life. So, who are the women in your life, Lorie, that helped you become the woman that sits before me today?
But one of my favorite stories in High on Life is about my mom and about how, and I think this is so important because we all have moms and many of us are moms, and how misunderstood moms can be. So I really happen to have, I think, the world's greatest mom, but I didn't know that until after she died. And when she died, a friend said that I would always find her in my heart, and that's where she's been since she died in 2002. And I just see, her sin was that she was always there, that she was always in the background. But of course she was, because she cooked every meal, she washed every item of clothing, she sewed every button on, she made lunches. Of course, where else would she be? My brother and I never washed a dish in her house, never. So she was just ever present, which was annoying to me. What's
Yeah.
wrong with this picture? And so and then I have 2 daughters and a son, and I want them to think I'm amazing, like I now think my mother was amazing. And my grandma certainly was, and she was good with money before her time, and my grandpa evidently was not, and it took a while for my grandma to convince her mother-in-law that she needed to be in charge of the money because my grandpa was going to do weird things with it. So I really come from a long line of strong, really amazing women, but they didn't have careers. They were stay at home, and we so tend to put that down. But I don't know. Did you have a stay at home mom? What did you have?
So I did. She did for a little bit. My mom was a teacher, and so she was a boomer. She just passed away a year and a half ago of Alzheimer's, and so I completely can relate to what you're saying about there was my mom and I's relationship was interesting. It wasn't bad, but there were times it wasn't good, especially when her Alzheimer's took over. But we didn't know that at the time, so there was a lot going on there. But yeah, what did you ask me? Did I notice? Oh, she was a teacher, and so with boomers, they were like, she did stay home for the first 7 years until I went off to first grade. I was in second grade, my brother went off to kindergarten, then she went back in the classroom. But I think if the times were different back then, she would have done something else than teaching. But that didn't seem like there were a lot of choices. It was like nursing or teaching or staying at home. So it had expanded a little bit. But to your point, a lot of your mom's generation is probably the greatest generation, or even one.
Yep. 1920, my mom was born. Yeah.
Yeah, so they were all staying home, and now I don't know. So it's interesting to see generationally how that's all changed.
It really is, and I still don't, like I've said already, I don't know. I don't know about work-life balance. I really don't know.
I don't either.
know how to do that. My youngest child, my daughter, just went back to work full-time and has 3 sons. And I just don't know. She's doing a great job of it, but oh my gosh, how difficult, how very difficult. So I don't know how people do it. And the older I get, the more I see the importance of taking care of human relationships as opposed to climbing the ladder, maybe. I don't know. I have to go visit. I saw a tombstone in the cemetery that it really had bullet points with accomplishments. I really have to go back and take a picture of that because that's not normally what it says. It says good mom, good friend, good this, good that, I think that's important. The older
Well,
it gets, the more important things.
well, and I wrote about this week in my blog that I put out once a week because now I do have an author's platform, and the title of it is "My 19-year-old Called Me Selfish," and it's a story. She did, and it's a story of something that happened 2 weeks ago when we got into an argument. We don't argue often, but she felt like my world revolves around my hockey career, my book coming out, my podcast, all these things, all my work, and that I'm not listening and I'm so focused on my stuff. And so she called me selfish. And while it stung, I was like, there's a lesson in this. And that's a lot about what I write about, and I'm passionate about, which is the double bind women face. We have these children, your daughter being a great example. She has 3 children. She just went back to work full time. It's, like, how do we build these careers if we want that? Or even if we don't want that, but we have to support our family and be a mom. It's so hard. So I write a lot about that.
Well, so you're doing a slice of life column. How nice for you. And you can compile your evergreen stories down the road when you get about 36 of them together and have another book.
Oh, well, look at you.
I just wrote your second book for you.
I made my
writing because go visit my website and read. I mean, I just write about I don't know what. I mean, I'm writing about a trip I just took is blog number 180. But it's all full of gratitude. It's a story about gratitude. Well, that's evergreen. It doesn't make any difference that I felt gratitude in Amsterdam. It was gratitude, So anyway, keep that in mind, Tony. Got another book coming down the pike. The first book sells. How you sell the second book is how you sell the second book is made by the first.
Well, there goes Lorie cheerleading. Look at her. It's innate in you.
You can do it. I know you can.
I made my husband promise me that I wouldn't write another book. And he said, sure, Tony. He says, I'll try to remind you of that, but you're going to do what you want anyways. So, Lorie, tell me, I know you write a lot and you're an author many times over, but what are you reading right now?
So if you visit me on LorieKleinerEckert.com, or you will see that besides writing 2 blogs a month, I also write book reviews. So I read contemporary fiction for the most part, and I am an affiliate marketer on Amazon. All of these things come step by step by step, little, as we call them, income streams for being the not so famous author. But anyway, so I write about books that I read, and I do like contemporary fiction, but that seems to just be so marketable. So I am reading Theo of Gold. Have you read Theo of Gold?
I'm reading it right now, too.
Reading it right now. My reward for doing this podcast is I'm going to finish it this afternoon. I got to a really meaty place and put it down last night. Yeah, so I read contemporary stuff. I just read Rebecca Searle's new book. She writes magical realism, and I just finished oh gosh, why am I going to draw a blank on her name? She wrote One True Thing, and her name is Anne somebody, and she has a new book out, and I like Ann Patchett, I like Paul Auster's recently deceased. I read mostly women, but Paul Auster and Richard Russo, oh my God, there's lots of great authors out there. Yeah.
So you're
reading Theo.
I am. I'm reading Theo. I just finished a book on the law of attraction by Michael Lozier. I read a mix of fiction and nonfiction. What else am I reading? I keep track of it. Do you keep track of it?
Oh, of course. Well, and then so I have over 250 book reviews on my website, and now I'm advertising them that way. But yeah, they're all there. So you may want to consider that also an affiliate marketer for Amazon. Wait. Just this week, they invited me to be an influencer. Is this hysterical? And I can have my own marketplace on Amazon.
That is, I'm gonna have to go look at your reviews. I think that's really cool because I keep track of all the books I read. My goal is to read my age every year. And
that's great.
And that's why it's easy to keep track of. So I'll be 48 in a few weeks. And so I've read 21 books so far this year. And
wow.
yeah, like business, I read The Science of Scaling by Dr. Ben Hardy. I found that interesting. And then in the fiction world, I read Escape with an exclamation point by Stephen Fishbach. One book I hated, Lorie. I got to tell you about this book I hated. 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. I hated that book. I hated it. It's some of these books that were written that are a little older are very, how do I say this? I won't be politically correct. They're sexist. And so very patriarchy, and I get frustrated by that.
Yeah, I would too. Even though I was the motivational speaker, and so it looked like I was telling people how to live their lives, I never was. I would actually say that I think what Richard Bach said, we tend to teach best that which we most need to learn. So what I'm talking about today are things I'm trying to learn. And if this helps you in any way, great, but I'm not telling you how to live your life. So I have trouble with nonfiction books trying to tell me how to do something. So this is, again, I'm going to encourage you in your slice of life blogs where they're evergreen, because anyone can identify with a daughter and mother exchange that was uncomfortable. And I'm sure you wrote it beautifully so that your daughter it's not cringeworthy or anything like that, and has her permission, and it's wonderful. People will see how you made it through and what you learned from it, and how she learned from you too, that she's going to most likely face these same challenges. And it's not like, well, let's see how you do it, sister. It's like, I can't wait to see how you do it. I want to learn from you. And I'm sorry if I didn't do it right, But, oh my gosh, you're writing beautiful stuff. I'm going to go visit your website.
Thank you. Yeah, I even wrote in the piece, I'm not doing this to run the bus over my daughter. So,
yeah.
like, we both apologized and we moved on. And really, she opened my eyes up to things that already were on the surface a little bit, but I just needed to revisit. And a lot of times as parents, what we do is say, well, when I was 19, this is what happened to me. Well, here's the thing. She doesn't give a shit about 19-year-old Tony, because she's going through 19-year-old Chloe stuff, and that was dinosaurs roamed the earth when I was 19, right, Lorie? So
Definitely.
that's why I love writing. I love writing because I want to know why you love writing too. Like I can get all these thoughts out of my head that are relatable or not, and I don't know, it just helps keep me grounded. What is it about writing that you love?
Well, I'm really trying to chronicle a little bit of the aging process, since I have somehow insanely reached the age of 74. My son is going to be 50 in August. I identify with being 50, but not with him being 50. So I really am trying to chronicle that without being too gross, about how the skin under your arm hangs or whatever. So I'm trying to chronicle that and continue to be human. And I'm always really there saying life is difficult, but you can do it, and laugh along with me. So like one of the things I wrote was, I'm going to write shampoo, hair care companies and tell them that if they want older people to use their product, they better use a larger font, because when you take your glasses off to wash your hair, you don't know which is the shampoo, and so people can laugh at that, yet people are struggling with that. A friend of mine said to me, well, here's a hint. The OO, you can make out the OO of shampoo. It's like, well, you actually can.
It's a good piece of advice.
I with all of these silly little things. And Yeah, so I hope I'm leading the way. I think that I have grandchildren who are writers because of me, or in part because if my grandma name is Marmal. If Marmal can do it, anyone can do it. I think that plays into it, which is fine. But I have 3 kids who have been on the journalism team at the high school. So,
Oh, very
yay,
cool.
that's wonderful. Yeah. And there's so many reasons to write, to clarify who you are, what you are, the important things in life. Writing is really very well. One of the stories in High on Life is 3 reasons to write in a journal. And there are multiple reasons, but keep a history of what's going on, to sort out, a problem, the pros and cons, and have it in a place where you can find it again, come back. If you were successful, you can do that again. If you weren't successful, you know what not to do. And also, I believe when you have a problem and you tell a friend, you give a little piece of it away. But the
Yeah.
same thing works if you write it in a journal. So, oh my God, there's just so many reasons to write. It's a wonderful thing that I recommend to everyone, especially if they're going through some kind of transition in life, which is another big story in High on Life. Personal reinvention, over and over and over again we go. Yeah,
We sure
but
do.
we're experienced.
What would 74-year-old Lorie tell 50-year-old Lorie?
I would, I'm really getting in, this is terrible, getting into the importance of the loved ones, that I don't know. On the one hand, I want to be a man because patriarchy. And on the other hand, never. I want to be the woman. I want to feel things. I want to be the one who gave birth. I want to have that connection. So I just think it's the people stuff that's so important, and that's what I would tell me. So I had started on social media when Love, Loss, and Moving On came out. So 5, 6, 7 years ago, putting up motivational messages, about, success and all this kind of stuff. And then I realized, my grandkids are on social media. I don't want them to think this is what success is. Success is I love you. Success is you love me. Success is you came over to visit me today. So I changed my evil ways, and I stopped focusing on success as dollars and cents, but success as people skills and being with people. So that's what I would tell the younger me. That's what I would, that you have to do meaningful work, but it's for the purpose of it being meaningful, for it making a contribution in the world, not for it making money, which again, money is important. I don't know. I'm going to leave it up to Chloe. Is that what you said your daughter's name is? To figure out this work-life balance for women. It's all on her 19-year-old shoulders. We need her.
We do.
You can do it.
We do, because you and I don't have it, and that's okay. That's okay. That's why we do this stuff for the next generations. Lorie, I've so enjoyed our conversation. Congratulations on your book coming out. And tell everyone, if they want to read your blog, buy your books, where can they find you? Where can they connect with you?
Well, so they want to, go to LorieKleinerEckert.com and sign up to get my blog sent to them twice a month, and or read my book reviews. And then if you've got that Lorie Kleiner Eckert, you can just Google that, and it'll bring you to Amazon, it'll bring you to Barnes & Noble, it'll bring you all kinds of places. I even have an Etsy shop. I mean, I am pursuing every income stream here. I want you to know, Tony. I even have an Etsy shop, LorieKleinerEckert.etsy.com, and all social media is Lorie Kleiner Eckert. So if you feed that into the computer, you will get many, 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 many hits. And if you want me so that I can tell you personally, rah, you can do it. Or if you want me to come to your audience, if you buy a copy of the book for everyone, I'll come for free, then you write me at Lorie at LorieKleinerEckert.com. So it's easy to do. But I hope they will. I hope they will buy High on Life, or Chai on Life is easier to find that way. And also Rebellious Success.
Oh,
Pre-order.
thank you. It ties in to what you're saying. Define success on your own terms. That's what my book is about. So it doesn't have to be a linear path. You decide how it's going to be, and live a big life. Don't play small. So yeah. No, thank you, Lorie. It's such a pleasure. If you all are looking to connect with me, I'm not hard to find. The hockey side of my life is at kwings.com. And then everything else I'm working on, The Big Note, Rebellious Success, my book is coming out August 11th. You can pre-order now. And everything else that you can find on my website. Or I, too, am on social media on all the platforms under Tony Will. And until next time.